Hi, this is a continuation of Abdul-Quddus' experience with Islam. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Oh shoot! It keeps on bouncing around here. All right. I'll continue. Okay. The Islamic world was a catastrophe, for we Muslims were unable to recognize. We're unable to reconcile the discrepancies in our religion, the bedrock of all predominantly Muslim states. In the Quran, particularly Medinian revelations. Okay, in the Quran, or as Oblamer would call it, the Quran, particular Medinian revelations conflicted with Meccan ones. Our foundation was an incomplete sacred text, quite ambiguous, inconsistent, and without chronological order. With the Quran lacking proper substance to be a constitution for our civilization, we implored man-made ahadith to help a divine revelation. Although this combination provided substance to implement Sharia, Islamic law, it brought more discrepancies into the religion. According to the Quran, all men and women are born in a state of fitra as Muslims. However, the Sunnah demands the adhan calls the adhan, or maybe azan, call to prayer, the shahada, to be yelled into our infants' ears at birth. While the Quran commanded worship in neither a loud nor in a low voice, Quran 17:110, Sunnah instructed a Muslim to scream at pedestrians the adhan, or azan, call to prayer from the top of buildings. Allah's creation is perfect, but Sunnah mandate that Muslim infants should be corrected with circumcision. The Quran says to make no distinction between the prophets, yet the hadith inspired Islam with quote, Allah and His Messenger was awfully familiar to the Father and His Son in Christianity. Islam has elevated the Prophet Muhammad to infallible hero with almost godlike status. However, when Allah commanded 50 prayers a day in the night of Al-Isra and Miraj, Muhammad could not submit and disobediently sought to reduce the amount repeatedly until it was down to 5. Women could legally have no more than one husband, while the Prophet Muhammad could and did have several in one day. Allah created everything perfect, especially the Quran, which is considered to be the ultimate miracle. That's Quran Surah 88, Quran 17:88, proving Islam by containing ayat, signs, verses, proofs, evidences, miracles. Non-Muslims who doubt the Quran are challenged by Allah to produce a surah like it. Quran 2, verse 23. Yet throughout Muhammad's prophetic career, Allah would abrogate verses to quote, substitute one revelation for another. Quran 2, 106 and 1601. As if the truth needed correction. He claimed throughout the Quran to be the most merciful and the most beneficent, while simultaneously threatening men in detail and prepared punishments and tortures awaiting him in hellfire. Right, he's most merciful and beneficent, yet Allah only made it appear that Jesus went to the cross when he secretly took Jesus up to be in heaven, creating damning Christianity in the process. Doesn't sound very smart. Indeed, or he's very evil. Take your pick. It's not very smart, or he's evil, not very beneficent, like he says. Continue here. Although the Quran claimed to be the best hadith, the Quran claimed to be the best hadith in Quran 39:23, Surah 39:23, and contained Sunnah, fundamentalists were not satisfied with the Quran. Indeed, they abandoned the Quran in the process of as the Prophet Muhammad said of his people in Quran 25:30. With such inconsistencies, no wonder a schism in the Islamic Ummah occurred immediately after the Prophet's funeral. No wonder. The evolution of behavior of a Muslim revert has always been predictable. Sufism was what attracted the ample majority of today's converts. In fact, without a military conquest by the sword, this has basically been the endorsed ideology for the amical expansions of Islam. Indeed, Islam wasn't completely spread by the sword, but was welcomed by many. However, to the downright and straightforward, Sufism isn't Islam, but a deviation from it. Tasawwuf, or Sufiya, ingratiated Islam to the kafir by accommodating a rigid theology into a compromising spiritual mysticism. Islam almost took the backseat for some individuals. Instead of pursuing the Muslim identity, many reverts would become obsessed with their Arab wardrobe, the Arab language, and Arab politics. If they converted to a predominantly South Asian neighborhood, you'd notice the reverts mimicking Desi culture in an attempt to assimilate. It's a daunting task, especially for Muslims, to rectify the confusion of Islam with culture and culture with Islam. From first-hand experience, I generously estimate that merely a quarter of all converts actually remain Muslim by their first year. Oftentimes, a serious revert would exhaust him or herself to the point of burnout and would slowly disappear into apostasy. The latter individuals were never spoken of, as we ignored anything that could possibly jeopardize Iman, faith, and taqwa, piety, fear of Allah. Judging by their facial expression and physical posture, I could differentiate between a non-moderate Muslim and a timid apostate trying to go undetected. He could differentiate between a non-moderate. He could differentiate between a now moderate Muslim and a timid apostate trying to go undetected. Those mu'minun, faithful believers that actually kept Islam, now keen on fundamentalism, eventually disowned their native culture and decidedly lived and dressed as 7th century Arabian Muslims, even in North American metropolitans in a North American metropolitan city. The first turban I actually saw was on a Canadian, a Caucasian convert trying desperately hard to, quote, be one with his Pakistani congregation. These particular reverts, ripe for a picking by the Salafiyun, would willingly yearn for strict adherence to the fundamentals of Islam. As reverts, readily dupable and persuadable, our dependence and submission was crucial for a successful brainwashing. Let's see here. Reverts Islam, ever so gullible and naive, were easily susceptible to the prevalent dysfunctional behaviors and propaganda infecting most Muslim societies. By striving not to conform with the kafar, we duly had to be ignorant by circumnavigating anything un-Islamic. We believed if a Muslim concealed the faults of another in this world, his own faults would be concealed by Allah on the day, that is, the day of resurrection. That's why Muslims never, attack other Muslims. That's why they never say anything bad about other Muslims. I wonder what part of the Quran or Hadith he got that from. Anyway, I'll continue here. We believed if a Muslim concealed, that's right, his would be concealed on the day of resurrection. One revert declared that Osama bin Laden was better than, quote, 1,000,000 George Bushes and 1,000 Tony Blairs, simply because he's a Muslim. Arrogantly speaking, we Muslims were, quote, the best of peoples ever raised up for mankind. Quran Surah 3, verse 110. So when atrocity occurred, it was obviously committed by Muslims in the name. So when an atrocity occurred that was obviously committed by Muslims in the name of Allah, my fellow brothers and sisters were complacent. We obsequiously overlooked, I guess I should say, the human rights violations in Muslim countries, even when the victims were Muslims. The conspiracy theories widespread in my Muslim society were outright delusion. Not even the moderate Muslims who neglected salat and committed zina, illegal sex, fornication, adultery, etc., could accept the Muslim identities of 9/11 pilots. As my Afghani classmate remarked, quote, "It was the Jews." When the opportunity rose for self-criticism, inevitably we instead blamed the Jews, our favorite scapegoat. Homogenizing oneself into the Islamic Ummah was ostensibly clinched in one supported the latest Arab Muslim agenda, grew an outstanding beard, abstained from using beads during tasbih, expressed hatred for the Jews, uttered the word bid'ah occasionally, and repudiated the modern state of Israel. We proudly acknowledged the jihad, yet acted stupid if questioned by a kafir, and responded to their accusations with, for example, "How do you know it was done by Muslims? Where is the evidence?" Although they were not blind to the videotaped confessions by boasting Muslim terrorists, they chose to be. Although they were not blind to the videotaped confessions by boasting Muslim terrorists, they chose to be. Not all Muslims were terrorists, although it was unequivocally but agonizingly true that most terrorists were Muslims. Sunni Muslims, to be exact. If some Americans or Jews died, there was sympathetic joy, and I observed this particular behavior generally absorbed by one Muslima just 5 years old. We hopelessly adopted a rigid interpretation of Islam taught by immigrants from oppressed theocracies that incarcerated Egypt to keep rethinking and dissent criminal, and their rule immutable. The greatest threat to dogmatism is doubt, because thinking leads to kafir, disbelief. Kind of like in Mormonism. How's it go again? The thinking has been done. I used to be a Mormon, so I know about that. Oh, shit. I hate this computer. It bounces you right off the page, and you have to try to get back on. Oh, man. Shit. I guess I'll have to make another partner, because this just bounced me right off. Shit. Hi. Okay.